Okay, welcome to Complete Aviation Solutions Deep Dive number 98. We're so glad you're joining us.
Great to be here.
You've sent over a really interesting stack of materials, and our mission today is, well, to unpack them.
Yeah, get beyond the headlines a bit.
Exactly. Pull out the most important insights about some recent developments shaping the aviation world.
And it's quite a mix you've provided. We've got new airline plans, pretty ambitious ones,
Right.
some critical safety actions from regulators after that incident, and also some really significant fleet orders, big numbers involved.
It feels like a snapshot of the industry right now.
Yeah.
Challenges, growth, safety,
Yeah,
all intertwined.
definitely. And there are some interesting connections in there too, I think, once we start digging in.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So let's just dive right in. Where should we start? How about that Hong Kong-based airline? Their expansion plans look pretty significant.
Good place to start. Yeah, the material highlights their aim to expand their network considerably.
And specifically, they're eyeing the U.S. market, which is a big step.
It is. The documentation you sent specifies they're looking at seeking permission for scheduled flights. First stop, Saipan.
Saipan, right, in the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands.
Exactly. And then the plan is to follow that up with flights to Guam.
Okay, so Saipan first. Do we have a timeline on that?
Yeah, the plan mentioned is for the winter 2025-26 season, so still a little way off.
And the aircraft for that initial route?
They're planning to use the Boeing 737-800 for Saipan. Looks like maybe 2 flights per week initially.
Okay, using their existing fleet type there. And Guam?
Guam is penciled in for 2026, and the idea there is to use the B737-9s.
Ah, the 737-9s. And that brings us to a potential snag, right? The sources you provided mention a challenge here.
A pretty significant one, yeah. Their U.S. plans, especially for Guam, are basically contingent on getting those B737-9 deliveries from Boeing.
And they have quite a few on order, don't they?
They do. 15 B737-9s on firm order, so a solid commitment.
But the deliveries?
That's the issue. The original expectation, according to the documents, was for the first couple to arrive around April, maybe May 2025.
Which has already passed.
Right. And there's no updated timeline provided yet.
Any reason given in the material for the delay?
Well, the source attributes it partly to geopolitical tensions. Apparently, these have caused a pause in Boeing deliveries to China, and that seems to be impacting this Hong Kong airline, too.
Interesting. So it's a knock-on effect.
Seems like it. The material does say deliveries are expected to restart, but, well, they haven't yet. We're just reporting what the source indicates there.
It really highlights how global factors can mess with airline planning.
Okay.
So while they wait for the naked nines, what are they actually flying now?
Their current fleet, based on the info you shared, is 8 Boeing 737-800s.
Okay, so that supports the Saipan plan, at least initially.
Exactly. And there's another interesting tidbit, a non-binding commitment for 5 Boeing 787 Dreamliners.
Non-binding, so not a firm order yet.
Correct. More like an expression of interest, maybe securing future production slots, but it suggests they're thinking bigger, longer routes eventually.
787s would certainly open up different possibilities. And the ownership background. The sources mentioned something there, too.
Yeah, it's wholly owned by a Hong Kong enterprise. The breakdown is quite specific. 3 Hong Kong nationals, one with 80%, another 15%, and the third holding 5%.
And any notable connections?
The documents mention links for one owner to another airline on the mainland and others involved in real estate in Shenzhen, so established business figures behind it.
Okay, interesting background. Let's switch gears now. The sources you provided also cover a much more serious topic, safety actions following that recent aircraft crash.
Yes, a critical development. This involves the incident with the B787-88.
The flight was Ahmedabad to London Gatwick, is that right? On June 12th.
That's the one mentioned, yes. And the material details the regulatory responses that followed.
What did the authorities do? Specifically in India and Japan, according to the sources.
Okay, so in India, the DGCA, their civil aviation authority, ordered a comprehensive safety inspection, not just of the aircraft involved, but of the airline's entire B787 fleet.
The whole fleet. How many aircraft is that?
According to the information provided, that airline operates 26 B787-8s and 7 B787-9s. And the source notes they're the only 787 operator in India.
Wow, okay. That's a major inspection program. What about Japan?
Japan's authority, the MITT, took action too. They instructed 4 specific airlines, ANA, JAL, Air Japan, and Zepair, all of which operate the 787, to inspect the engines and airframes of their Dreamliners.
4 airlines. How many planes does that cover in Japan?
The source puts the total at 141 D787s across those four carriers. So again, a very wide-reaching inspection mandate.
So India focusing on the specific airline involved, Japan broadening it to all operators of the type in the country. Interesting contrast.
It is different approaches to managing the immediate aftermath.
How did the U.S. respond, the FAA?
Well, the documents state that U.S. officials, at that point, said there weren't grounds to ground the aircraft type. But they stressed they'd implement any safety recommendations that come out of the investigation.
Okay, so more of a wait for the findings approach, but ready to act.
Exactly. The U.S. Transportation Secretary was quoted directly in the material you sent. "We will follow the facts and put safety first."
And it's really important to emphasize, as the sources do, that at the time this information was compiled, there was no official cause determined for the crash.
Absolutely crucial point. No official confirmation or even theories released yet. These inspections are precautionary measures based on the incident itself.
Understood.
Yeah.
Safety is always paramount, and you see regulators acting quickly, even if differently.
Definitely.
Okay, let's pivot one more time. The third major piece of information in your sources concerns a startup airline, this one in Saudi Arabia, making some huge waves with aircraft orders.
Ah, yes, the new entrant there. They've certainly been active on the order front.
The big headline seems to be a massive Airbus order.
That's right. A firm order placed for 25 A350-1000s. The source mentions this was announced June 16th at the Paris Air Show.
25 firm A350-1000s. That's a flagship aircraft, the biggest twin Airbus makes. For a startup, that's bold.
Very bold. And they didn't stop there. The documents also say they secured purchase rights for another 25 of the same type.
So potentially 50 A350-1000s eventually.
Yeah.
Wow. What does purchase right mean exactly in this context?
It basically gives them a secured option to buy those extra 25 later, likely at pre-agreed terms or pricing. If things go well and they want to expand further, it offers flexibility.
And the significance of choosing the A350-1000.
Well, the source notes this makes them the first operator of that specific type in Saudi Arabia. It's a very long-range aircraft, signals serious global ambitions. No delivery timeline was mentioned in the material, though.
Still, a clear statement of intent. And this wasn't their first big order, was it?
No, the information you provided flags this as their third major order, all while they're still gearing up to launch scheduled flights later in 2025.
What were the other orders?
Before the A350s, they had already committed to 60 Airbus A321-200Ns.
The narrow bodies, for shorter routes, presumably.
Most likely, yes. And also 39 Boeing 7879 Dreamliners.
So a mix of Airbus narrow body, Boeing wide body, and now the largest Airbus wide body, covering all bases.
Pretty much. 60 A321neos, 39 787-9s, and now potentially 50 A350-1000s. You add that up.
That's nearly 150 aircraft planned, potentially more. For an airline that hasn't started flying passengers yet, incredible ambition.
It really is. It signals a massive investment and a plan to become a major player very quickly.
Do they actually have any planes right now, according to the sources?
Documents mention they have one B787-9 currently, but it specified this one is just for testing and prep work. It won't actually be part of the operating fleet for passenger services.
So their entire launch and operation hinges on these new deliveries starting to arrive.
Absolutely. Which, circling back, highlights that same dependency we saw with the Hong Kong airline, just on a much larger scale, perhaps. Timely deliveries are critical.
Okay, so let's try and pull these threads together from the material you gave us.
Yeah, we've seen this Hong Kong airline with strategic plans for the U.S., but facing those B737-9 delivery hurdles, potentially linked to geopolitical factors.
Then the swift safety responses in India and Japan after the B787 incident, broad inspections underscoring the intense focus on safety, even with different regulatory approaches initially compared to the U.S.
And finally, this new Saudi airline making huge bets on the future with massive orders for A350s, 787s, and A321neos, aiming for a major global presence right from the start.
It really paints a picture of, well, a very dynamic industry. You've got market entry strategies, supply chain headaches, the absolute non-negotiable of safety, and these huge growth ambitions all happening at once.
It's incredibly complex. New players trying to get in, existing players managing fleet issues, manufacturers under pressure, regulators reacting, all interconnected.
Which leads to a really interesting question for you, our listener, to think about after hearing all this. Given these competing forces we've just unpacked, the ambitious plans, the very real aircraft supply challenges, the critical safety focus, what do you think will be the single biggest factor shaping global aviation over, say, the next few years?
Yeah, what's going to be the main driver or the biggest hurdle? Will it be getting the planes, navigating regulations, finding the demand, geopolitics?
Something to ponder. It's certainly not simple. Thank you so much for providing the source material for this deep dive. It gave us a lot to talk about.
It really did. Some fascinating developments happening out there.